Bonjour. Today we are going to talk about something that everybody learns in French 1, but nobody feels very confident about because they're kind of crazy at first and take a lot of practice and getting to know how they work. And that is numbers in French, les nombres or les chiffres. And we're going to talk about the difference between those words as well. We will practice numbers 1 through 100 and higher, and we'll talk about prices too. So first of all, un chiffre, that word chiffre means a digit. So like the number written out. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are called un chiffre. Un nombre is a number made up of chiffres, so a value like 37, 37. It also means quantity. So if I said le nombre de bananes, the number of bananas. In English, everything's called number, so it can get a little confusing. When I'm talking about numbers in French, I usually just say les nombres. There's also the number word numéro, and that is a number that identifies something, like a telephone number would be le numéro de téléphone, or let's say somebody's number on their jersey makes them joueur numéro 4. So numéro is a chiffre, a number, attached to a thing that's recognizable, so an associated number. Nombre is probably the number word you're thinking of when you're thinking of counting and doing math, but I wanted to show you all three words that mean number in French. Un chiffre, un nombre, un numéro. So let's start with our counting numbers, les nombres cardinaux. Zéro, zero is 0. And then hopefully you remember numbers 1 through 10. Those are going to be super important because they're the basis for all the other numbers. If you know 1, then it's easier to know 21, 31, 41. So we will start with the little numbers first. Un, un, deux, deux, trois, trois, quatre, quatre, cinq, cinq, six, six, sept, sept, huit, huit, neuf, neuf, dix, dix. So if you can count from 0 to 10, you already have a good foundation for numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A lot of my students have a hard time with 11 through 16, and these are also still important. You're going to need them when you count in the 70s and in the 90s, so they don't go away. We will need these important numbers too. They all have Z's in 11 through 16. Let's look at them. They sound kind of like 1 through 6, but slightly different. 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, 16. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Compare that with 1, 11, 2, 12, 3, 13, 4, 14, 5, 15, 6, 16. If you hear the Z sound at the end, you are in the teens right now, 11 through 16. If you remember from French 1, this is where numbers start to give you a little glimpse of how weird they can be, because suddenly we start doing math. 17, 18, 19. That's weird. It gets weirder. So they'll say 10-7, 10-8, 10-9. Now that does not mean that you can start saying 10-3, 10-4, 10-5. You can't just start making up your own math rules. There are numbers assigned for 13, 14, 15, specific words. 17, 18, 19 is how we'll do our higher teens, 17, 18, 19. 20 is 20, 20. After that, we're kind of just putting together what we already know. So 20 is 20. 21, no hyphens. 21 is 21. Notice if you are counting and it's something feminine like girls, it would be une fille, right? One girl is une fille, the feminine form. If I had 21 girls in a room, it would be 21 filles. So I can do 21 if the next item or person or thing is feminine. 21. After that, it's not so bad. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. I keep going till I hit 30. 30 is 30. And I'll go 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, etc. 40 is 40. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. 50 is 50. 51, 52, 53. And 60 is 60. 61, 62, 63, 64, etc. So you can get all the way to 69, and then after that, 70 starts to get a little bit interesting. I recommend that you pause right now and practice pronouncing these to yourself before it gets more complicated. So one last time: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 30, 40, 50, 60. In French 1, that might be where you paused because you were learning time, and we don't need to go higher than 60 for time, but for every other instance, we need to count higher than 60, and here's where it gets complicated. 70 is where we start doing some weird math, and we do 60, 10. So we know the number 60 is 60. We're going to say 70. 71. So like we did 21, I'll have the A in the middle there, and. So 60 and 11. 60, 12, 60, 13, and so we'll keep going that way. Here's what they sound like, and that's a lot of words and hyphens. 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. It can't get worse than that, you think to yourself. Oh, yes, it can. 80, they don't do 60, 20, or anything that makes sense. They do 4 20s. 4 times 20. Now we're multiplying. So 80, throw an S on there just because. And that S is going to go away when we get higher than 80. 81 is 81. Notice they dropped the word and because they were like, this is complicated. So 81, and we're going to keep going from there. So the 70s are the 60s plus the teens. 60, 10, 60, 11, 60, 12. Down here, it's actually 60, 10, 7, 60, 10, 8. 80 is 80, 81, 82. You'll keep going. 83, 84. And then when you get to 90, you keep this 80 because it's going so well for us so far. So we multiply, then we add. So kind of like how the 70s were 60, 10, 60, 11, 60, 12. The 90s are the other weird one. 4 20s 10, 4 20s 11, 4 20s 12. So here are the 90s. 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. Yes, that's a legit number, 4 digits long, 4 words long. 97, 98, 99. It can't get worse than that, right? Right. 100 is just 100. So I want to point out there are all sorts of memes out there that make fun of how crazy French is. It is wild that 97 is 4 times 20 plus 10 plus 7. So 4 20s, 10, 7, 97. But that's just how they count. And we get used to it when we practice it. And then eventually you can say 1999 like it's no big deal, and you say 1999 and everything's fine. Actually, these number systems, this number system is so wild that Switzerland, some parts of Switzerland said, no, we're not doing that. And they created a number. How logical. They created a number of 70, 80, and 90. And some places in Switzerland say 70, 80, 90. But not everywhere does that, so that's not what we're going to learn, even though it seems so convenient. Um, that's what we mainly need to practice right now, just to show you how numbers can go higher than that. 100 is 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, those aren't bad. 200, 300, 400, these round hundreds, you put an S on the end, 200, 300, 400, and then you add more numbers after that, 201, 202, 203. 1000 is 1000, 1000, 1001, 1002, 1003. 2000, 2000, and then it keeps going. So like 3010 would be 3010. Higher numbers, 1 million, 1 million, 2 millions, etc. And just to show you that it's not that bad, even if you get a very high number, you just take it bit by bit. So this is 43, 43 mille. 43 mille. 500, 500, 69. 81 mille, 2. 300, here's that fun one, 99. The more you practice, the more natural it gets. 123 mille, 123. These are not that bad once you just kind of slowly pick them apart. And our last number, 784 mille, 260. Wow, that's a lot to write out. Anyway, I suggest that you go back and practice these numbers. I'm going to make a second video where we talk about prices and money and the euro. But for now, I think that's enough info. If you can count from 1 to 10, that's an awesome start. Then learn your teens. They're very important for the teens, the 70s, the 90s. And then you need to know 20, 30, 40, 50. And once you understand that the 70s and 90s are weird, you can do this. You've got a handle on your numbers. Just practice and go back and try pronouncing them, writing them out. You'll get them eventually. Ciao! Or move to Switzerland and just do 70, 80, and 90 and call it a day. Au revoir.